Welcome to Tech Talk by CMS. So our topic for today is decoding ChatGPT. And as our speaker, we have Nuzhi with us. Nuzhi is working as a data scientist at CMS, and he's also a visiting lecturer at the University of Moratuwa. So hi, Nuzhi.
Shihab. Pleasure to meet all of you today. And yeah,
Okay,
Shihab.
great, Nuzhi. Over to you, Nuzhi.
Thanks, Shihab. So let let me first start off by sharing my screen. Give me a second. Hope you can see my screen. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all. And I'll be basically today's topic for discussion that I'll be taking you all through is on how we can look at decoding ChatGPT and some of the use cases and some of the opportunities it presents. So just to start things off, to give a brief about me, I work at CMS as a consultant data scientist for one of the US clients. And I am interested in the AI analytics and business intelligence domain and have currently been in the industry for around 10 plus years as of now. So the contents for today's talks is in mainly 6 areas. I'll be, first touching upon what we can do about, understanding artificial intelligence. Secondly, we will be looking at what the language model means. We'll be kind of exploring in detail what is ChatGPT and why its importance, the importance of ChatGPT for, even for developers to anyone, who is looking to learn out there. The potential limitations that you can see that ChatGPT probably has, and iterating through ChatGPT in terms of what is next and what it holds, basically, to kind of have a look of, this is what the path forward looks like. So to start things off, looking at, the first one, which is kind of understanding what artificial intelligence is. The whole field of artificial intelligence kind of goes through in the 1950s, where they kind of looked at building different models, for various tasks such as, classification, supervision, unsupervised learning, etc. And towards the 1980s, you kind of had this subfield of it known as machine learning, which was beginning to flourish. And you had these different kind of algorithms being developed, mostly on tabular data, and focusing on tasks like supervised learning to unsupervised learning, etc. And towards the latter, or the early 2010s, there was a lot of interest being generated in a further subfield of that of artificial intelligence known as deep learning. The offspring of which you see certain output like large language models and the transform architecture that has kind of come in place. So basically deep learning, it was also kind of driven by the transformation in terms of hardware that you have seen. So I'm not sure whether you're aware, but recently NVIDIA, which is one of the largest chip makers for GPUs, is also, they're leading in terms of market cap as one of the largest companies, largest market capitalized companies in the US because of the boom in technologies such as large language models, such as ChatGPT. And, it's kind of driving the whole revolution for companies producing this hardware, such as NVIDIA themselves. So when you take about examples of where artificial intelligence is used in practical approaches, we see it being applied across various verticals and domains, such as chatbots, to search algorithms, to facial recognition apps, smart cars. They use it. They integrate it with the sensors that they use with LiDAR, and for object detection algorithms, etc. that they kind of use. To even navigation apps, etc. So these just kind of list a few of the kind of examples that you get out there in terms of where artificial intelligence is put to use. This list is obviously not exhaustive, but it does cover a bit of the, the kind of use cases that are covered out there using artificial intelligence. So the next topic that we're looking at is, what is language modeling, and how basically the technology has evolved over time, right? Or rather, more than technology, the underpinning techniques used to analyze language models has kind of evolved over time. So the textbook definition for language modeling is basically the use of various statistical and probabilistic techniques to determine the probability of a given sequence of words occurring in a sentence. Yeah. And language models have been used to analyze, large corpora or bodies of text data to kind of provide a basis for, what the next kind of words would be or the word predictions would be. So, one of the fundamental kind of processes that they started out in terms of, predicting, the next sort of words that could occur was the Markov process. So Markov process is kind of like a probabilistic process which kind of conditions the probability of a word being predicted based on either the previous word or the previous couple of previous 2, 3, 4 words. And this was at the basic level, that was there in terms of techniques at the dawn of the or at the initial part of the 20th century. Then there were different approaches to it taken, like where the information theory was kind of formulated. Then you had Alan Turing coming up with the whole computing machinery and intelligence part. And there was a bit of a breakthrough, in the 80s in terms of the recurrent neural network by John Hopfield. And also, you also had the introduction of convolution neural networks, which brought in certain concepts like, the whole convolution part of it to increase the accuracy in terms of, image classification. And, the recurrent neural networks kind of borrowed on certain aspects of it for the, the language modeling part of it. And, basically, it was in 2017, I believe it was late 2017. There was this really groundbreaking model which was introduced in the paper. Attention is all you need by Vaswani et al. From Google Research, and that touched upon what was basically popularized as a transformer model. And it kind of revolutionized the whole NLP or the language model kind of state of the art at the time. And it kind of introduced a few new things which exponentially kind of made it the performance of the models better. So we'll be touching a bit on what it kind of the nuances in terms of what it was introduced that kind of gave it that lift, and we'll be seeing a bit of that as well. So in a nutshell, what are transformers? Yeah. So you also hear the term GPT, Chat GPT, right? So the term GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So basically, ChatGPT and all the other GPT-based large language models utilize this neural network architecture known as, transformers or the transformer architecture at its core. And basically, transformers kind of improved on some of the previous type of architectures based on, they introduced a couple of new things and new ways of looking at it, which kind of improved on it. So if you look at the history of how transformers evolved, right? You had the paper towards mid of 2017, mid to late 2017, which was Attention is All You Need from Vaswani et al., which kind of introduced the concept of transformers. Then you had the different types of transformers which were kind of being introduced. Even though it was initially introduced from Google, it was developed upon by others like at places like OpenAI, obviously, where we had these GPT models. Then you had BERT being released from Google. And we've had this timeline of where basically all these kind of GPT models have kind of been, evolving and kind of brought out there. Now we have GPT 3.5 by OpenAI. GPT-4 is also there, right? So those are available as pay-as-you-go subscriber models for, for whoever wishes to use them. So before transformers, the state of the art before transformer architecture was generally considered to be the whole recurrent neural network kind of architecture, where you would have the state of the recurrent neural network cell being carried over time by it would carry forward it in this sort of architecture over time. But there were certain issues in that which were overcome with the introduction of the transform architecture. And we've kind of seen the whole recurrent neural network phase. It's been superseded by the whole transform architecture model, which has come into play. So when you look at the transformer model, what is basically new in it compared to the other neural network architecture from before, right? So the transformer kind of makes use of a encoder decoder architecture. At least it does in the original transformer architecture that was there. And it introduced basically two new significant improvements in terms of what could be looked at, in predicting the words. Basically, it introduced what was known as multi-head attention and positional encoding. So if I were to try to explain, multi-head attention in layman terms, say that you're trying to understand a sentence in a foreign language, right? So if you're trying to understand a sentence in a foreign language, you might find it useful for you to consult multiple experts, each with a different area of expertise, right? So that's kind of how multi-head attention works in transformers. So when it processes words in a sentence, the model the neural network model pays attention to different parts of the sentence at the same time using these multiple heads. So each of these heads focus on a different aspect of the input of the text, right? It could be the grammar, context, or specific relationship between the words. So by this multi-head attention architecture, using the multiple heads, it's able to learn more nuanced patterns in the data simultaneously at once. So this was a key improvement. Then you also had what was known as positional encoding. So like consider if you have like a very long book with, we have chapters, but unfortunately there are no page numbers in it, right? So how are you going to find, specific information without any sort of reference to the order of the page, right? So positional encoding in transformers would, it acts in a similar way where you have like page numbers in the book by providing a way to encode the sequential order of words in a sentence. So basically, you could think of it as a set of page numbers or bookmarks added to each word in the sentence, which gives the model a sense of the word's position, allowing it to understand and process, the sequential information more effectively, even without having to explicitly rely on the order of the words. So these were the two main attributes which were new in transformers, which kind of set it up for success. So when you look at what is ChatGPT, as mentioned before, it's a transformer based generative model, and over time we've seen like the number of parameters in the model evolve to much larger numbers, right? So what started off initially from 2017 as 65 million parameters, with GPT-3 has evolved to around 175 billion parameters, and with GPT-4 it's even increased. And what's made that scalable is how the GPU the hardware has kind of scaled in terms of supporting and the training of this type of models. So these gives this table kind of gives you an idea of in terms of how the parameters of the models have evolved. And there will probably be more and more parameters being introduced as the OpenAI models change, and the other large language models introduced by others as well, like Google, to Databricks, to all of that kind of increase as well. So next, we're going to be look at some of the key aspects that ChatGPT has helped in certain aspects. So for developers and for even for writers, uh, basically in terms of productivity, right? Um, some might question that is it replacing people or is it optimizing productivity? So this is a bit of a question mark, but you could see several courses being released out on Udemy, Coursera, especially in terms of how you can use prompt engineering for you to accomplish certain tasks in a faster manner, right? So that is kind of gaining popularity. We'll be touching on a few prompt engineering examples later on as well. Uh, but by and large, the productivity gains that ChatGPT has been producing kind of significantly kind of improves on what we can see in terms of the potential losses. Um, this is an interesting, kind of aspect to it, which is, the importance of ChatGPT in terms of the jobs affected, which is, will OpenAI's ChatGPT kind of replace your job, right? So interestingly enough, basically what they're saying is that the people who are more in terms of exposed in terms of potential disruption are people who might be involved in tasks such as software based tasks like developers, etc. But it like I guess there are two sides to this in terms of um, it it it'll help you to kind of effectively do your job, and it'll be an aid that can be used in your job. But the guys, the people, or the community which kind of embraces and uses ChatGPT more effectively in their job will probably have a definite competitive advantage over the others for sure. But this is also, there are implications being brought in terms of, these large language models, which are, going to be ubiquitous and pervasive. How will they kind of potentially affect, certain knowledge-based jobs that are out there? That is also a question mark, and, kind of needs to be seen. So this is like what I mentioned earlier, like, the whole prompt engineering side of things. So there are courses now available on Udemy, available on Coursera, which is basically, how to best kind of engineer prompts. This is not only for large language models, but also for, generating images with, models such as Stable Diffusion and Dolly, and, Midjourney, for example. So there are specific ways that you can kind of cater and write out your prompts out there, which will better kind of give you more refined versions of what you want to do in terms of generating images, or the type of use cases that you're looking in terms of large language models. But this has also brought in a separate with every new technology you have certain implications in terms of security which it turns in. So for those of you who have heard of, when you talk about SQL or SQL, you heard about things like SQL injection, right? So there is this thing known as prompt injection, which is where you can kind of hijack the prompt to get the, you give the model certain types of commands where it kind of performs in an unexpected way. So the prompt injection is also evolving in terms of, getting your large language model to kind of act out in an unpredicted way. So these are like, and those can, if you're using this large language model to, you're exposing it to downstream to a user interface, it can be hacked by someone who is like using the prompt injection techniques. But they're kind of working on workarounds to kind of, handle this type of malicious sort of use cases. Um, So this was a few months ago, I think, where they were looking for. There were two sides to this in terms of an AI moratorium, right? You would have at one end of the spectrum, you had people like Elon Musk, etc., asking the labs to with GPT-4 to stop developing on new AI systems. And at the other end of the spectrum, you had basically veterans in the industry such as Yan Likun and Andrun, basically opposing Andrunang, opposing for the opposing the call for pausing on the development of the system. So they are like professors from the academic side, and they've also worked in I believe Baidu. Yan Likun is at Facebook. So and these are they were basically two sides of the coin where they were kind of saying some were in favor, some were against. But I think like what we're seeing now is it is still going on. So let's see how this kind of evolves, right? So this is like one of the potential limitations. It's getting less and less to see. The models are improving. So I was trying to recreate some hallucinations, but this is not there maybe in the newer versions like GPT-4 or the updated versions of GPT 3.5. So if you've heard of something like Fire Festival was a festival which was organized, which was a failure. But you can see over here, ChatGPT kind of gives something saying that it's a positive review of it, right? Even though it never happened, basically. So hallucinations are potential limitations of these large language models, but they are kind of overcoming it in terms of the way they're developing in the iterative new versions. There are also still errors in reasoning, like mathematical reasoning. It's not structured to basically be the best at mathematical reasoning, but they're kind of working on improving that aspect of it as well. So when you kind of look at what ChatGPT holds, right? Like when you're iterating through, what does it hold in the future? We see these things from competitors for ChatGPT in terms of other large language models being introduced. You have Dolly from Databricks, Llama from Meta, Bloom from Hugging Face. All these different types of large language generative AI models being developed. There was, I think, a few months or a month back, there was also an article saying, with the open source backing that they're getting back, and if the access to computing power gets more easier, the open source is what's really going to kind of drive this. But these models are there are various types of models based on the transformer architecture coming out, which are improving on ChatGPT. So these are like some of the competitors out there. You have Bard, which is given by Google. And these are some of the other competitors to ChatGPT coming out. You can also join the waitlist, or you can, I'm pretty sure some of you might be also checking it out. And you also have what's known as the adjacent products or Copilot suite of products being arranged on ChatGPT, which is you have the Microsoft 365 Copilot being introduced. For Bing and Edge, you have the AI Copilot, and if you use GitHub, for sure you probably heard of the GitHub Copilot app, AI pair programmer. So all this Copilot technology is powered by the same transform architecture that powers ChatGPT, right? So we've seen all these copilots, for different verticals. So that's something that'll probably be coming in large in terms with ChatGPT. Also, a popular kind of thing to note would be, the issue with the intellectual property regarding training data for large language models, right? Who actually, so quite a while back, Elon Musk kind of threatened to sue Microsoft for scraping Twitter data to use for training for its AI. and Reddit, they also use data from Reddit forums, etc. So there's this whole not controversial, but you have this whole issue in terms of IP with regarding training data for these large language models, which is a legal question that needs to be kind of looked at. So you also have like if you have like early access, if like some of the things that you have with ChatGPT, the latest things is the integrations and plugins, and they also have like a wait list where you can develop plugins for ChatGPT. This is from a TED talk, and it's pretty interesting. Like it kind of plugs into all these kind of integrations to integrate ChatGPT with this other sort of tools. So integrating with tools like Zapier for automation. So think of it like you're using natural language as a sort of natural language API for developers, natural language API to kind of operationalize stuff, and you don't have to write stuff in code for you to kind of write this decisioning engines at the back end of things. So this is an interesting use case of ChatGPT as well. Also, right, if you heard of this term called artificial general intelligence, which is considered to be the holy grail of artificial intelligence, does ChatGPT, is it like in the next step in terms of, is it the foundational step for the next step in terms of achieving artificial general intelligence for what we as a human race are looking to build on? So this is different people have different viewpoints on it, and it's a question mark, I guess, at this point in time. But yeah, so this is the $1 billion question, I guess, which people are kind of still focusing in terms of what could potentially be on this space. Yeah, so I have a few demo. Do you have any questions at this point? I have a few demos arranged as well. We can move into the demos, or if anybody has any questions, we can take any questions now. And I can move into the demo after the questions. Okay, so if there are no questions, let me move on to the demo, and let me kind of share my screen on this. Give me a second. So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen on, this is what the ChatGPT interface looks like on what I have. So I kind of purchased the ChatGPT Plus version, and this is what it kind of looks like. So if you touch upon like what I mentioned in terms of prompt engineering, right? There are ways that you can ways and guidelines that are given in terms of for you to look at efficient kind of prompt engineering techniques, right? So let's take a simple example, like let me just type in, give me ideas for maybe let's say for a pet, right? Name of a pet for a dog's name. Yeah. So it kind of gives you like, it's like, okay, it gives me like 20, right? And it gives me maybe a few best practices in terms of kind of what sort of options to kind of go with. But say when you're prompt engineering, you want to kind of you actually want to give it something. You want to add a bit more context, which would give you a kind of more better answer. So let me say I want to get maybe the top 5 ideas, and I have a specific breed of dog, maybe say a golden retriever, and I want to maybe name it after something that is something like that if I like out of popular movies, for example, right? I want to narrow it down. So let me add that context into it and try to see what it will come with. So see, it kind of comes up with a narrowed down kind of version for the names, right? Like, so, from the when I basically kind of gives more context to the question that I'm asking for it, it'll give you more, like, versus me just saying a dog versus me saying, it's for a golden retriever, it gives a more response. So there are, mainly what's classified as, the prompt categories that are out there in terms of, major categories are, you would have something like information seeking prompts, like, you would ask like, what are the health benefits of, going on a particular type of diet? Then you would have what are known like, instruction based prompts. But instruction based prompts are, that is like when you're basically, maybe not from a chat GPT point of view, but something that you're kind of doing to, you can use from Alexa Siri, where you're saying, find the fastest route to an airport, or, turn the lights on, or, something like that, for example. Yeah. The next is basically, context providing prompts, which is basically saying like, if you're saying that you're basically you're new to gardening, what are some easy to grow plants for beginners, for example. Those are examples of what are known as context providing prompts. Then you also have, different other types of, prompts that you kind of go up with. So when you're creating a prompt, you need to identify the problem or goal you want to kind of, set up with your prompt. You need to add the most important keywords and phrases. Then you need to compose the prompt. Then you need to, see whether the response given to you is what's needed. And over here, there are like, if you're using, for different versions of ChatGPT, you like over the plus model, you can select 3.5 and GPT-4. So GPT-4 gives you the latest in terms of, what it kind of the best, the latest model basically, and which needs more creativity and kind of advanced reasoning at its back. So that's like an example of, what's there in terms of, prompt engineering. So next, let me show you something. Before I go into the API demonstration, let me see if I can get something for in terms of the playground. Yeah. So this is kind of, what's shown here is the OpenAI kind of playground model. So over here, right? So I'm like giving an example, which is basically classify the sentiments. Assume these, these numbers from 1 to 6 are tweets, and give them a score from -1 to +1, with -1 being the most negative, 0 being neutral, and plus being the most positive. So I've kind of, this is like, a typical machine learning task, which I have defined in a natural language query, and I'm asking it to output, right? So, and I defined, the parameters and the polarity of how it should score. So you can see it's giving a pretty good kind of score over here. It's able to understand the nuance behind this. Like the first one, I can't stand homework, a -1, and it's pretty accurate in terms of, guessing this out. And, I am neither happy nor unhappy. There, it's kind of guess it as a neutral kind of standard. So it's pretty interesting, how it's kind of able to do this at its backend. So this is just a small demonstration of its, the power of the model. And you can select different models as shown here. You have the different models that they've kind of checked. You have the Da Vinci, Curie, Babbage, Ada models. Different models that you can use when you kind of make API calls to different type of things over here. So this is the playground is a good place to kind of test various use cases. They also have certain examples which it covers, which when you look at it, very futuristic and very, very interesting use cases that would be interesting for developers as well. Next, moving on, let me move on to demonstrate how the Postman collection works. Postman, sorry, the API works. And I'll demonstrate it to you using Postman. So this is using one of the APIs on OpenAI, and it's the Completions API, version 1 of the Completions API. And I'm using, as you can see here, I'm using the TextQuery 001 model. And let me make, let me just maybe put something. Tell me something about ChatGPT. Let's ask it about itself, and maybe let's send a request. And you can see here it's giving a response, right? So these parameters, I said it should have maximum of 100 tokens. So it'll have maximum of 100 words with the basically with the punctuations, etc. So 100 tokens there. And these are other parameters you can use, on the API documentation that's given. But some of them include how random it should be to different other kinds of parameters in it. So you can see, it's giving here in terms of the text in the response, what ChatGPT is, which is basically a global platform that connects businesses. Okay, so this might not be entirely accurate because it's using the TextQuery 001 model. Let me give me a second. Yeah. So it depends on which model we're going to be using, right? So again, let me switch this over to text. Da Vinci 003. Hopefully this should work. Wait, I spelled this wrong. And let's see if that works. It'll probably take a little longer to run. Yeah. Yeah. And it gives a much better answer compared to the earlier model that we were calling. Yeah. So you can see it says that ChatGPT is a contextual chatbot technology that enables, yeah. So this is more in line. So again, it depends on which model you're using. And DaVinci 3 is considered to be the most capable model. Curie, the one I used earlier, is capable, but it's faster and lower cost. So there are different tasks that they are good at, also optimized for different kind of use cases. So that's what you kind of see there. So this is how you can kind of integrate it with APIs, and this is just one application in terms of one API that's kind of used. Yeah, so I guess those are what I have in terms of demos. Do you all have any questions or anything that you want to clarify? Just feel free to reach out now.
Okay, so seems like we
I do have a question,
Go ahead,
Nuzhi. In terms of ChatGPT 3.5 and the paid version, like does the answers differ for the same question?
Yeah, Roshan. The answer can differ depending on which version of ChatGPT you're using. So with the paid version, you get access to GPT-4. It's available exclusively only to the Plus users. So those the GPT-4 model is much better in terms of some of the answers that it can give, especially for creative and things that need advanced reasoning. So GPT 3.5 is what's available in the free tier. You have access to more stuff in terms of a better model in GPT-4. Also for the Plus users, you also have access to there's a wait list that they have for certain plugins. So those are also open to if you're a Plus user subscriber, for example.
So by default, does both 3.5 and 4 use DaVinci 3, or is it something different?
I think not too sure on that, Roshan, but I think they use they would be. I assume they're using DaVinci. That would
Right.
probably be the architecture they're using. Again, I'm not. I'll need to double check on that, but yeah, I guess I would need to. Proper answer would be I would need to double check on that. Yeah, but that's what I'm assuming it to be. I think there's a question, right? Students using ChatGPT to cheat. I don't think that is a good trend. But just to add context there, I guess with every new technology, you would have people who would be using it for their benefit, and it can be used for potential good versus potential disruptive purposes as well, right? Disruptive as in not potentially the intended use case it was used for. We've seen it across every type of technology that's been introduced, from television to the internet, etc. But if this kind of gives the potential for you to use it, increase your productivity, it depends on how you. I guess the short answer is depends on how you use the technology. Again, it's not for me to comment on whether a trend is good or bad, but there will be other checks and balances that will probably be brought in the equation as well. Like if you look at it, right, there are like with certain plagiarism software such as Turnitin, they're kind of bringing in tools to kind of identify if the plagiarism is being done through something like a large language model. So with this, there are people who are bringing counter measures and technologies to kind of address it as well. So it's never going to be like a stable equilibrium, but you will have these new innovations being built on for all the new cases that kind of come out there, is what I think we will be seeing. Also, how mature is Google's Bard compared to ChatGPT? It's I guess it's there are differing opinions out there. There are like I in my opinion, I haven't used Google Bard too much, but in the the limited kind of scenarios I have used it, I have found ChatGPT more useful for the use cases that I have looked at, which is mainly programming and kind of operationalizing certain tasks that I'm looking at. But for example, I think one of the advantages of Google Bard is that at this moment in time, it has access to more current data, and it's able to kind of correlate the current data with regards to your queries. So I guess that's what's I guess ChatGPT is working towards that, and that will be released with the plugins going forward. But I think that's a key kind of advantage that Google Bard probably has as of now.
Okay, I think that is all the questions we have for today. So Nuzhi, firstly, thank you for your time, Nuzhi. Thank you for taking your time and taking us through this. So it was very interesting as well, and thank you all who attended today's Tech Talk as well. And hopefully we'll see you soon at the next Tech Talk. Thank you all.
Thank you.